Are you ready, Captain?
Hey guys, it's Scott here.
This is Sam.
We're SitEatDuel.
You know what we said.
So I have a CEDH deck here that's actually, believe it or not, I looked on CEDH Rec, I looked on Mox Opal, Goldfish. I spat. This is the only red-black Turbo Adnos deck.
Turbo Adnos?
This is the only red-black.
Have you seen any other of those decks?
There's red-black decks that run every other color, but there's not a single purely Boros, right?
Yeah, Boros.
Boros.
No, Rakdos.
Rakdos. This is the only Rakdos deck that I've found. Now, does some guy at their house have this? Maybe. However, there's Blue Farm, there's Regular Farm, there's a bunch of other Adnos decks. This is the only red-black one.
Gotcha.
So I run Flamewar, Brash Veteran. So here's the thing.
A Decepticon.
There's two reasons why I run this card. For starters, when you're sitting at the table, now that I'm making this video, now that my deck list is online, this might become less of a thing, but no one knows what you're playing. So CEDH is a format where when you sit down with Kenrith, you sit down with Thassus and Theros and
one of the two partners.
You know, people kind of know what you're playing. When you sit down with Brash Taunter, they see red-black Transformer. If you're sitting at CEDH table, they assume it's CEDH, but they don't know what your game plan is, which gives you an inherent advantage in a deck that's trying to win.
They know that you're black, so they know that you're going to dig through your library for some sort of combo. But in red-black, you don't know what they're trying to do because most CEDH is Thassus Oracle.
Exactly. But the other reason
there's other combos, but there's a good majority of games that end in a Thassus Oracle.
You know, I lied. There's one deck list I found. It was the 0-drop Ragnarok,
yeah,
and the Black Planeswalker. That was the only one I found, but I only found like one or two deck lists for it.
I mean, that's a good one.
But here's the thing.
It's a good one.
This deck, the reason why I chose her as a commander isn't just because I wanted to surprise people. Her ability is very relevant. So she is a wheel on a stick. I can play her turn one pretty consistent. This deck is going to run all the fast mana. Same as Spirit Guide, Mana Crypt, Mana Vault, all the Petal, Lotus Petal.
Yeah.
All of them Jeweled Lotus. So turn one, you can play on her backside, swing for 2, sacrifice an artifact, swing for 3, sacrifice an artifact, swing for 4. When you catch someone for
During
2...
other turns, yeah.
When you hit someone for 2, you exile 2 cards under her. When you hit someone for 3, you exile 3. And
so
4,
her ability is whenever you deal combat damage to a player, you exile that many cards off the top of their library. I mean, off the top of your library, under her face down.
With an intel counter on it.
And then you can sack her.
You can pay 1 mana, 1 generic mana, to discard your hand and put all cards with intel counters on them. So even if she dies.
It's a Bomat Courier, but you don't have to sack it.
Yes, a Bomat card doesn't have to sacrifice, and if she dies, those cards can still go back to your hand. Because Bomat Courier, those cards are forever gone. With her, as long as you replay her, you can put those cards in your
because
hands.
there's a kind of counter on them.
Yeah, there's an intel counter.
Intel counter.
So the reason why I run her as my commander is because with Turbo Adnos, you want to mull aggressively.
Yes.
You want to get as fastly to Adnos as possible. So here's what you can do with this deck. If you can mull comfortably down to 4 or 5, you can risk it and go to 3 or 2. After you go to 3 or 2, your next goal is to just play Flamewar.
Yeah, and then reset your hand.
And reset, exactly. So when you're going to 5 or 4, your goal is to absolutely hit Adnos. If you get a good hand where you're able to Adnos or getting close to Adnos, you should keep it. If you have absolutely dog crap hand, like 0 lands on your 4 mull to 3, keep your Mountain and Lotus Petal, keep your Mountain and Jewel Lotus. Play your commander, swing 2, discard your hand, get 2 cards. Play those cards, swing 3.
By turn 3 or 4, you can have 5 or 9 more cards in your hand.
Easily.
Very easily for 1 mana too. Discard any 0-drop artifact that you isn't relevant right now and can always get back later using other parts of the deck. The
other reason why I run her, and this is a very specific line, is once you have, because this deck also runs Underworld Breach. Once you have a bunch of cards in your hand and you have Underworld Breach, because I've been in situations before I ran her as my commander where I'd have 0 cards or like 3 cards in my graveyard, but I had like 15 cards in my hand, but I need to get those cards in my graveyard. So what you can do is, even if you have 0 intel counters on her, let's say you have Underworld Breach on the field and you have all these cards in your hands and you have no way to play them, you can just pay 1, discard your whole hand, put it in your graveyard, turning on your Underworld Breach.
Yeah. As long as you still have the mana for it, but yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
how do you win with this deck?
So this deck does not care about your opponents at all. This deck has almost zero interaction.
You're not really killing your opponents with that transformer at all.
Yeah, not likely. In a 1v1, yes, but in multiplayer, no.
No, not at all.
Not at all. So the way this deck is going to win you is a couple ways. So this deck is all about your lines. This deck has tons and tons of lines. I find new lines to this day, and I've been playing this deck for over a year. Of course, I've upgraded a lot since then. So the way you're going to win is through your Adnos most often. You're going to run all the tutors, Demonic, Imperial, pretty much all the tutors. You're going to get Adnos, and using your fast mana / cards like Dark Ritual or Calling of the Week, you're going to play Adnos turn 2, turn 3.
Yep.
The cards that you're looking for are going to be a few, and that's the fun part.
Quite a few make all of your artifacts cost some amount less, so then you can splurge the rest of your hand onto the battlefield. Because you can't, with Adnos in this deck, there's so many 0 and 1 drops that you can go 20 cards deep and only lose 5 or 6 life.
Exactly. So like the mana reducer. So this is Adnos with eggs, which is why it's very different. All the Adnos decks I've seen, they're not very egg based. They run a lot of the low cheap counter spells. So they're running things like counterspell, the mana drain, the spell pierces,
Force of Wills.
But since this is eggs, we go with a lot of the 0-drop artifacts or cheap artifacts. These are mana reducers, so you can exile a artifact under your semblance. Artifacts cost 2 less.
Mm-hmm.
You play this, artifact costs 1 less.
Foundry Inspector, artifacts cost 1 less. It just snowballs into your 5 mana artifacts are free now.
Once you're able to make all your artifacts essentially free, the next step is you're going for Top and Sensei.
Mm-hmm.
With this, you're able to draw your whole deck.
Interesting with this, you just need 1 mana reducer with Mystic Forge on the field and Sensei's Top to go infinite and draw your entire deck. Because with Sensei's, you draw a card, put it on top. You pay 0 mana if you have a mana reducer off of Mystic Forge, cast it, and then rinse and repeat. Keep drawing and filling up your entire hand.
And the other case scenario is you can go with the Aetherworks Reservoir with the
Bolas'
Citadel. With this, you no longer need the mana reducer because you're going to be gaining the life every time you play your top on the top.
Bolas' Citadel is a interesting include because it's 6 mana and 3 black.
And the thing is with the 3 black, so this is why I like the eggs version. We have so many ways to fix our mana base. So for starters, odds for running Clone of the Week and Dark Ritual.
Yeah.
Not only that,
Phyrexian Tower.
But even my inside, this is the part I really like about deck, is you could have no colored mana. You could have all colors mana, and by running cards like Chromatic Spear, Chromatics, all the spears, Chromatic Star,
you can then filter your mana through. It's really nice and fun to see someone go from having all colorless lands to then popping off and then making a whole bunch of red-black mana off of Lion's Eye Diamonds and Lotus Petals and Prismatic Prisms, and then Grape Shotting your opponent or something like that. Another win con in this deck is just to Storm with your eggs and then Grape Shot.
So minus the 2 eggs are the Star and then the other one, Star and Prism. We also run, not Prism. The 2 eggs. Minus the 2 eggs. Minus the 2 eggs that we were talking about earlier. The other 2 ways that we're able.
Sphere and Chromatic Star.
Chromatic Star. We also run Prize Statue, which gives us a treasure, which will get our black.
When it enters or leaves.
And our commander is also a sack outlet. Mm-hmm. We can sacrifice this card with our commander.
Yeah, so you can pay 1, but then get the treasure immediately back.
And that's why I like my commander, right? It does have artifact sack, which I do need sacrifice outlets for some artifacts. Yeah. It is great synergy. We also run a Chromatic Prism.
Yeah.
Once again, fixing that mana, making that colors into black, making that colors into red, or making that red into black, or making that black into red, which I do all the time.
And drawing a card.
And that was the next piece I was gonna get to is drawing a card. All of my eggs draw me a card. So essentially, when I'm mulling down to 3 or whatever, and I have a land with 2 eggs that they draw a card, I'm able to still mill through my deck.
But Scott, what if you don't have Underworld Breach and you still have all these artifacts in your graveyard? How are you even going to return them? Do you have a card combo with artifacts or anything like that to get your artifacts in your graveyard from out of your graveyard onto the battlefield? I don't think there's a way in Magic that you could do that.
So I have multiple ways.
No way.
One of the ways, and I added, and I haven't gotten to playtest it as much as I would like to have, is Yawgmoth's Will. Now I will say, obviously Yawgmoth's Will, once it goes back to the graveyard, it's exiled.
Gone.
However, it's mainly to get back my Aethel's Reservoir, my Bolas Citadel, my top...
Recombo.
Just to get my combos back in case someone 6 lands me instant speed.
I also know you run a Mirror Retriever and what's the
Scrap Trawler.
Scrap Trawler.
So Mirror Retriever and Scrap Trawler is the more traditional and the way I prefer to do it. The Yawgmoth Will is also there for like my tutors effect, of course.
You're throwing a KCI for infinite mana or grinding station for mill. How many different lines can this deck run with just artifacts?
I think I've counted over 14
Different lines.
Different lines.
Different ways to kill.
These are the 2 ones that will return back artifacts. This actually does create an infinite loop when you do it, especially with Mirror Retriever. Then the other way to win con. So let's say they stopped your 8th Reservoir. They stopped everything. You do not have a single out left. And let's say they have a collector who's on the battlefield. You were just feeling down on your luck. The next option, once they have absolutely destroyed you, all the artifact hate, you're going to play all your 0 drops. You're going to play... You're still going to play these because all the... Thank you. Corrector Hoof and all the other hate bears... That's rough.
Yeah.
All the other hate bears don't stop stack abilities. At least stack abilities making artifacts cost 2 to 3 less are still active.
Yeah.
So you're gonna play every single artifact in your deck. Once you've played every artifact in your deck and your storm count is absolutely ridiculous, we still have the Grape Shot backup. The reason I run the Grape Shot is twofold. For starters, as I said, if there's somehow stacks to me and I'm not able to do anything with my artifact or use their abilities rather, I can still cast them for free. I think I have over 40 artifacts. I'm able to cast over 40 artifacts, cast that Grape Shot, remove whatever creature is stopping me. Still more than likely remove at least 1 or 2 players. And then my combo is back online, or I'm able to Yawgmoth's Will to recast Grape Shot.
Or Underworld Breach.
Or Underworld Breach to recast Grape Shot, exactly. The only utility I actually run, because as I said, this deck does not respond to your opponents at all. The only 2 pieces of utility I run is Orcish Bowmaster.
For draw, Against the draw.
Against the draw cards. And then the other card I run is the Deflecting Swat. Those are the only 2 cards I have that actually respond to your opponent. The Orcish Bowmaster is a new addition, and here's why I personally added Orcish Bowmaster. It's twofold. With the Grape Shot, it makes my Grape Shot a smaller build you need it. It makes me need it for less, but it also acts like a removal spell for most of the hate bears. So it's a 1 damage on ETB, and then assuming someone else is drawing 2 or 3 cards, I'm able to ping down the cards that are preventing me from playing the game.
You know, Orcish Bowmaster being a black Grape Shot is a great comparison.
Yeah.
It really is.
And that's what it does for me. Oftentimes the Bowmaster is just there to remove the pesky creatures who are preventing me from winning. And then it also acts like a sack outlet for my Call in the Week or my other effects like Dog Bulk Intent that require a sacrifice creature. I can sacrifice the token or the Bowmaster, whichever is required.
Yeah. There's one fun card that I'm seeing here that is just absolutely fun. Final Fortune. Take an extra turn after this one, and then you lose the game.
So yeah, here's how the Final Fortune works, right? So you just add Naj for however much. You got 45 cards in your hand. You have the win, but let's just say you didn't get enough of your Zodrop artifacts. So you don't have enough to really combo out, but through mana filtering and all your other stuff, you're able to produce that 2 red you need. You're then able to cast Final Fortune, giving you that additional turn, letting you untap, draw,
and then get back from your graveyard or keep cycling through your entire deck. Pretty sweet.
Pretty sweet. And then turning off 1 line just requires me to go to a different line. Even removing cards like Top, which you would think would be an absolute game ender for me. Yes, Top is an absolutely amazing card for me. However, with cards like, with me having the Underworld Breach with the tutors, I can just tutor up my whole deck. I don't need to draw my whole deck. I can just tutor up my whole deck. With cards like the Mill one,
So it's almost like a machine that if a gear falls off of it, it still runs. it just shifts a little bit.
To the left, yeah.